There's an interesting thing going on in American education that shows you the real hypocrisy of it. Because you've got this move now in the United States called Common Core. And the real heart of this, Al, is to make everything computer-based, so that the teacher basically becomes nothing more than a functionary for administering the curriculum that comes through the computers and administering the tests that come through the computers. But if you go to Silicon Valley in this country, where people there have the money to send their kids to private school, you'll discover something very interesting. And that is those people, the tech geeks themselves, insist on sending their kids to schools where there are no computers. None. No tablets, no iPhones, no computers, where everything is being done the good old-fashioned way.
Yeah, like Montessori and Waldorf.
Exactly. And, I'm a stickler for this because the best times that I can reflect on in my education, all the way back from kindergarten all the way through graduate school, were those encounters with those teachers or professors that were, straight out of like a character straight out of a Charles Dickens novel.
Yeah. Little Timmy.
That made you think, that really challenged you and were there to help you learn how to think critically and not to be intimidated by authority and degrees and so on and so forth, that actually trained you to be an independent critical thinker. And I can still name you my teachers that influenced me that way, my second grade teacher, fourth grade, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, same with me.
Yes, exactly. And a computer's not going to do this for you.
Good point.
If you're responding to a bunch of anonymous programmers working for the Education Testing Corporation in Princeton, you're always in the position of having to second guess and read someone's mind. And the other thing that we point out in this book is that the standardized tests themselves, which are supposedly designed to test your knowledge, oftentimes contain such egregious errors.
And biases, right?
And biases.
And the framing itself, right?
And the framing itself, yes, precisely. Oftentimes you'll run into questions where you know more than the test makers know.
Yeah.
And so answers that they think are incorrect are actually correct. And I cite one example in the book that I found. My co-author and I were looking at test questions and so on from the past, but there's one question that just kind of floored me. One was a question that began, Emperor is the name of, and you were given three selections, a concerto, a quartet, and a symphony. That was the three answers you were supposed to pick from.
Okay.
And of course, the correct answer, supposedly, according to the test makers, was concerto, Beethoven's Fifth Piano Concerto. But, this is actually incorrect because it's also the name of a Haydn string quartet. So if you're coming into that test with a little bit more knowledge, then how do you answer the question? Well, you can't. And there are examples of this over and over and over in the American testing so-called business. And it basically boils down to, Al, is that the whole thing is a gigantic fraud. Because what these tests do, ultimately, is they punish people with the finer mind.
Right.
And
because there's no nuances. I mean, if you come into a predetermined choice test and you have that knowledge that you just exemplified, there's no way you can even convey this to the incompetent teacher. So you're
or the computer. Or a computer, You're selecting from prepared answers. There's no way for you to explain your process of reasoning.
No.
There's no interaction. And the sad thing here, Al, is that this was all part of a design that my co-author and I go into some lengths to try and show people was a sorting and slotting mechanism. It was really done to socially engineer the country.
Yeah.
So, this is the other thing. You're actually punishing people for having intelligence, and you're slotting mediocrity into top positions. So
yes, I experienced this actually.
I have too.
Yeah, and this was with a person as a teacher. So if even people are not to account for rewards for excellence, I mean, what can computers do? In my case, it was maths, and this was before I knew. Today, I know a little about maybe we could call it occult mathematics, mathemagic.
Yes.
I know a little about that. I knew nothing about this back then. I admit I hadn't done my homework properly, but I solved the question intuitively by going by an other route than what was expected. Now, the teacher gave me an error because I didn't go through the proper route. I went to a shorter route that was waterproof, foolproof, gave the same result, was not rewarded. I don't expect to get a better degree than those who follow that, but at least I should get some payback for having been creative enough to solve it.
Right, exactly.
But no, I was punished for straying away from the...
For straying away from the orthodox methodology. Believe me, I've been there.
Yeah, I do.
Believe me, I've been there.
So it's frustrating indeed.
It's very frustrating, absolutely. And particularly to the student that knows they're right and that are put into this straitjacket of having to conform to a test which in its own turn has been compiled by mediocrities. And, this brings me back to the fact that if you're going to assess someone, this is why I gave essay tests when I was a professor. I want to know the process of reasoning behind what people are saying. And I also want to see if they can articulate their thoughts. Because, Francis Bacon said, writing maketh the full man.
Yeah.
And that's true, because you can have all the correct thoughts in the world, but if you can't articulate them or cannot articulate each little step of your logic and bring other people along in your thought process, then, communication breaks down and we're back to square one.